Hello everybody, welcome into Scores, Goals, and Touchdowns. This was it. This was leading up to, we had the big week, the big game. We'll get into that later. I might as well introduce the crew here today. Surviving Black Friday.
Absolutely. Against all odds.
Yes,
Who
back
knew?
with us again.
My final career Black Friday was a huge success.
How was it?
The first 2 hours I thought I was going to get trampled, but much like Tim Tebow, I rose again and finished the day.
There you
Persevered,
go.
Absolutely.
And sporting his Lions attire, we have Detroit Larry back with us again.
Hey!
I guess that's a good place to start. Some good news. The NBA, maybe the lockout's finally over. Agreed with they agreed with it. Tentatively, yes. He's wearing his Detroit attire. I know you love the Pistons. Tell us your thoughts on this.
I don't really care much for the NBA the last few years. The rules have gotten so ridiculous. I mean, you breathe on LeBron and it's a foul. So, I mean, those things are just very upsetting when you watch basketball. And I really grew up loving basketball, and it's hard to watch the NBA now. But, I mean, I was really hoping they would cancel the whole year, so it would be one less year that LeBron and the Heat could win a title. But I'm okay if with them coming back, it'll be all right, especially after that period when the NFL ends. I was hoping it would just be hockey, but I can live with having basketball back for a little bit.
All right, I'm sure Gary Bettman was constantly refreshing ESPN.com to see if the rumors were true. I think it's a good move across the board. A lot of the people that work in the arenas, a lot of hockey teams and NBA arenas kind of share one building, so a lot of these people only work a couple nights a week. It's good for the workers of the stadium, your Zamboni, your ice crew, your the guys who switch the courts and what have you, like in Boston. It's good for the league. I mean, shortened season, cool, but what better kickoff point than arguably your biggest television day of the year on Christmas, when you have your three biggest matchups of the year as well. So they're coming. I mean, obviously there's going to be a little bit of layoff when you miss 2-3 months of the year. It's not like football where there's a lockout and then they just played business as usual. You lose your first 2 months of the season, but still, I mean, it's going to be a good year for the NBA.
I think just like the NFL, though, when they start free agency, it's going to be crazy, just like the NFL was. And that'll be fun. And that'll be fun. And then I think a shortened season, they'll see, holy cow, this is so much more entertaining because it's going to be a race to finish. Losing those, 12 games or whatever it is, or 14 games, is going to make everything so much more entertaining than 82 games, which is way too long.
Now, I agree with everything you guys said. Another thing that I'm glad the NBA's back, you might not know this between me and Larry here. When it comes to sports, we pretty much disagree on everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
With the NBA, it's nice because we both have a common villain. Our dislike for LeBron James, or as the Anderson put him,
Darth Vader and the Emperor.
Anyway, the big story happened this weekend. We had the big game, just one of the best games I've seen in a long time, especially in this rivalry. I mean, this had to happen. It's been Ohio State since 2003. And the games really haven't been close for the most part.
They were good up until 06. The Rich Rod era kind of ruined everything.
Right. This game had exactly everything you would want. You had teams fighting back. You had huge plays. You had Denard Robinson finally coming out of his shell and showing what he can do. I'll go on record here. I've been one of the biggest critics of Denard Robinson. There's not much I can say against him at that performance. 5 total touchdowns and only incompleted 3 passes. That says a lot about a guy, especially against his biggest rival in a game that they've been dominated. But you were there, you were watching with the crew. I'll let you take this from here, being the Michigan fan.
I mean, that game was a roller coaster. I mean, it really was. I mean, the first Ohio State touchdown, Michigan blows the coverage, and you just have that sinking feeling of, here we go again. We'll see what happens. And then, Denard takes them down the field. They go down and score. They answer back and go back and forth pretty much the entire game, and came down to the end. And even Ohio State had the ball with a minute and a half to go, and I'm still thinking, you know what, they've been moving the ball well enough that they can get down and make it interesting. And Miller has the pass to Posey, and Posey's open, has the Michigan defender beat, and Braxton Miller overthrew him.
Yep.
And I saw they moved the camera, and I saw the ball, and I went, "Oh my God, no!" And luckily he overthrew him. And then I still don't understand why they spiked the ball on 3rd down. I don't know, because it looked like that. I just watched it again today, and Fickle tells him, "Let's go, run the play," and Miller spikes the ball. So I don't know if it was miscommunication, if Miller thought they were supposed to spike it. I don't know. And then Miller threw the pick at the end, which is a really nice defensive play by Michigan, actually. And I mean, it was just such a relief to finally kind of get that monkey off your back of, I get a kick out of Kevin Weber for the last 3 or 4 years that I've known the guy. That it gives you crap, and it's nice to finally kind of say, okay, we finally won one. And yeah, Urban Meyer might be coming. Who cares? But
that's the future.
That's the future.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
For this moment right here, that was a great win, and it was a nice statement win to say, hey, we're back. We're Michigan. We're hopefully going to go to a BCS game, if not a New Year's Day game, and that's all I could have ever asked for this year to go to 10-2. It's great.
Right, you'd have to chalk this whole season up for Michigan as a rousing success.
Oh yeah,
Hulkamania running wild, no headset, doesn't need it, just needs to stand on the lines and sidelines and scream about everything. But yeah, I mean, even if they don't go to BCS game, it's a successful season. Any year Michigan beats Ohio State, it's a huge success.
And Notre Dame too.
And Notre Dame in 1 year. I mean, they won 10-2.
That's different.
Yeah.
Well, just like Michigan State owns Michigan.
Well, yeah, that's true. Michigan State had their own title to win.
Right, exactly. So I mean, it's a huge success. I mean, anytime you go 10-2 and you beat Ohio State, recruiting, merchandise across the board and what have you. I mean, there's going to be some turnover and what have you with players and stuff, but it definitely sets the tone going forward. Hulkamania and the rest of his tenure in Michigan.
And what you touched on earlier, taking nothing away from Michigan, they played great. I mean, they gave up a lot of points, but they made the stops when they needed to. Being a Notre Dame fan, I'm used to a lot of questionable coaching decisions. But like you said earlier, spiking the ball on 3rd down with a freshman quarterback on the road, giving him one chance, that left me and everybody with me just scratching their heads. Can you think of a worse call in a situation like that?
I mean, like I said, I think there was some miscommunication between Miller and Fickle, because when you watch it, Fickle says, let's go. Like he says to the offense, let's go snap the ball. And whether he was telling him to spike it, whether he told him to run a play and Miller misunderstood, or whatever happened, I mean, it's just one of those bonehead things. And those are things that have always come back against Michigan in these games the last 4 or 5 years. Where like last year, Michigan, the first drive went right down the field and then turned the ball over. I mean, that was one of those things where Miller overshooting Posey on that last play. That was something that if Pryor was there, I would have been frightened to death about. Yeah. But it was one of those things. The breaks went Michigan's way finally in that game, and it was just nice to see. It was good. But I mean, that mistake, I don't know what happened on that 3rd down.
I think it's just like a freshman, making growing pains. You got to learn, and when you're in a pressure cooker situation like that, sometimes you just slip up. I mean, you throw a pick or you spike the ball on 3rd down. It just happens. That's what happens when you play collegiate football and you have young 18, 19-year-old kids at the helm of your ship.
Now, as demoralizing as this loss has to be for Ohio State, and I can imagine
the whole season, really.
Yeah. But they got to think of it this way. If reports are true and Urban Meyer is coming there, he has a really good quarterback to work with. I mean, he's inaccurate, but so is Tebow, and look what he did with Tebow. This is a guy who's a great athlete, should be very good to great in Meyer's system. This rivalry needed this game, and it's all optimistic from here. Everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, the one thing Ohio State's still going to be lacking, especially with Herron gone and Posey gone, they really lack that big playmaker. And you could see in those first 5 or 6 games when they didn't have Herron and didn't have Posey, especially against Toledo, there was no threat of them going down the field at all. I mean, you just had to pretty much account for Miller running out of the pocket. But I mean, they have to replace some guys. But I mean, Meyer, he's going to recruit, he's going to win games, he's a good coach. But I mean, for all these Ohio State people to say, oh, it's going to be over for the next 10 years and whatnot, it's a little exaggerated.
I think it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to quiet down the Michigan fans.
Obviously.
Right, they always talk about, the cliche is that some teams don't rebuild, they just reload.
Yeah.
That's what Ohio State's going to do.
Oh, yeah.
But off camera, we talked about how it's not hard to recruit at Ohio State.
No.
I mean, you're arguably the best team in the Big Ten, and you just say, hey, I'm the coach of Ohio State, and kids line up. It's not hard. It's not like it's Purdue or Northwestern. It's not hard.
Now, we're going to get into in Pat's piece, we'll talk a little bit about Notre Dame. We're going to move on to the NFL. The biggest thing happened Thursday night, Thanksgiving. I got to tell you, something I was disgusted, and upon seeing it, I almost want to throw up. I'm talking obviously about Lions not wearing their throwback jerseys on Thanksgiving.
Yes, clearly.
Absolutely. Left a bad taste in my mouth.
That is my favorite uniform in all of sports. I don't know why. I'm a big fan of it. But obviously, what I'm talking about, the Sioux stomping on the offensive lineman. I mean, really, I understand it's football. You guys,
Right.
you're paid to practically beat up the guy in front of you, but really there wasn't any place for that.
Right, and like, what's most disconcerting about all this is afterwards when he said, well, I was trying to I lost my balance, and then like a day or two later when the Lions like, what are you doing? And then they came out with a joint statement or what have you.
Facebook.
Well,
Facebook.
the Lions came out with a statement, and then Sue came out with his own thing on Facebook about, which I accept his apology. It's fine. I mean, a lot of those guys, you get caught up in the heat of the moment. You do stupid things. I mean, the one thing I kind of get upset about is that no one mentions the fact that a Packer got thrown out of the game, too, for throwing punches at a Lions receiver, and no one even mentions that at all. So, I mean, that's a little frustrating as a Lions fan that, the Packers are undefeated, and, nothing gets mentioned of that. But it was a terrible mistake on Sue's part.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, on that play and the play before, their center and guard absolutely mugged him. I mean, he got basically tackled on that play, not a pancake. He got taken to the ground, and that's why their arms are wrapped around each other's heads when they first hit the ground. And I mean, I could have lived with him pushing the guy's head down a couple times because, I mean, there's trash talk going on in those piles, and those guys are saying whatever they can to get under your skin. And it almost looked like he was starting to walk away, and it almost like someone said something to him when he went to kick him. And, it was just stupid.
It is interesting to note that the one guy to defend Sue was the guy who got stomped on, said it's football, it happens.
Yeah, and that guy's also been called out by other players before, that center for the Packers, that apparently he's done some dirty things as well. But, it's still one of those things that Sue has to control his emotions in that situation, especially in a division game, a game at the time that was still close.
Yeah.
And in the first half, the Lions really dominated that game. They really handled the Packers, didn't let Aaron Rodgers get much of anything going. And I mean, it was just, I was at the game, and as soon as Sue got tossed, I said it was pretty much toast, and Stafford didn't play well. So it was just one of those things, nothing really went their way in that game. But an interesting note was that last year at this time, the Packers were 7-4 and went to the Super Bowl. The Lions are 7-4, so they're not out of it by any means.
No.
I mean, even with Sue gone for 2 games, they won't miss him against the Vikings. They'll beat the Vikings without Ndamukong Suh. They'll miss him probably against the Saints. That's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
And then he takes another PR hit. I mean, he gets suspended, he gets fined, he almost rips Jake Delhomme's head off last year.
Yeah.
He goes and visits the commissioner, and then 3 weeks later, he's got his hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. It's disappointing. He says he doesn't want to be dirty, he just wants to be aggressive, and then he steps over that line. It's disappointing, really, because I mean, Sue, we all like Ndamukong Suh.
Oh, yeah.
He's a great player. It's just really disappointing. It's like anytime your favorite player or whatever gets caught doing something he shouldn't be doing, you're just like, jeez, come on, what are you doing? It's just super disappointing.
And I've always defended him to the point that he is such a physical force.
Right.
He does dominate people, and I get frustrated. And they keep bringing up the one with Cutler from last year where he pushed him from behind. And that was not a penalty.
No.
It shouldn't have been fine. I hate when they bring
Absolutely
that one up.
not.
And so I throw that one out the door. I mean, the 2 biggest ones before the thing on Thursday was when he manhandled Dalton in the preseason this year and Jake Delhomme last year. I mean, those are the 2
both
biggest
in the preseason,
ones.
by the way.
Yeah, in the regular season, I mean, he's been called for face masks, but the one, I mean, he's reaching for a guy.
Right, yeah.
I mean, most of them have never been that egregious until the thing on Thursday.
And especially incidental face masks. There are no incidentals.
Yeah,
anymore.
it's all 15.
yards.
And I mean, the guy is such a monster. And I do agree with him that he is so strong that he pushes some of these guys around. And he pushes like Cutler down, and they threw a flag like he beheaded the man. But, I mean, that was just one terrible mistake to make, especially in a big game like that on national TV, especially when people already kind of have a bad view of the Lions. So.
Yeah. Punishment came down. He got 2 games, which it's fair.
Well, it hasn't come down officially yet, but they believe he'll get 2 games.
If anything like that gets leaked on a Sunday, that's what it is.
And he'll probably appeal it too.
Right.
So.
Well, Albert Hainsworth stomped on the guy's head and only got 5 games. So if you take it, it is consistent. He definitely deserved the punishment, but I'm glad that that's all they took. We're going to take a quick break and come back and do Pat's piece. See you in a bit. Another year, another Notre Dame season in the books. Even the most optimistic fan has to think about what might have been. They gave up 3 of their 4 losses by stupid turnovers at the worst possible time. They'll finish out the year at 8-4, and from what I've been reading, we'll be playing Florida State in a bowl game. Instead of dwelling on the negatives, which I can assure you I've been doing, let me explain to you why there is hope for the future. Notre Dame fans got their first look at quarterback of the future in Andrew Hendricks. He wasn't perfect, but we got to see how the offense can look with a quarterback who can run. Unlike the sky is falling fan base, I'm not ready to give up on Brian Kelly. He said last offseason they were going to work on the run game, and if not for an injury, they would have had 2 1,000-yard rushers. Now, with a quarterback who can throw and run, along with an improved defense, there's no reason we shouldn't expect big things soon, though I've been wrong before. Thanks for watching Scores, Goals, and Touchdowns with Mr. Pat. See you next time.
Up on the 11th bar and I'm watching the cruisers